Something else I've learned through the 20 years of not working is how much time there is to contemplate the reality of life and actually question it, actually question the reality that we are living in at the moment, the reality of the systems that are in place, the governments, the banking, all of these things. It gives, I've had a lot of time to ponder and think and question, a lot of time to contemplate. And this has really been an amazing opportunity because what I've realized is the ego loves to be busy. The ego needs to be busy because it cannot deal with contemplation. It cannot deal with looking inside. It cannot question the narrative of the reality that is its reality. It doesn't like to question anything outside itself. And because it is a separate belief in the self and it is a separate identity, it doesn't see wholeness. And so it doesn't question the confusion that we experience in the world. It doesn't question the laws and the rules and the systems that are in place. It doesn't question the fact that we need to work for a living, that we need to work to survive. It doesn't question winning and losing. It loves winning, it loves losing. It loves there being someone who has more and someone who has less. It doesn't question the nonsense, the unreasonableness of this. It doesn't question the fact that these things are unreasonable, that some people have extreme wealth and other people live in extreme poverty. So it doesn't like to question. It doesn't like to question, so it likes to be busy. Busyness is a goal of the ego, and it gets its power. It believes its power and its value lies in its busyness. I'm so busy. I can't do this because I'm busy. My life is busy and therefore it must be valuable. And this is really, how this is how our education systems work. They work on busyness. They keep the students busy, always busy, 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 to the point of stress and anxiety. And then the working environment is the same. It has to be busy. Everyone has to be super busy, and there's not enough time to live. Really. And this is all, part of an egoic, separate belief in the self, which ultimately is evil. It's part of the meaning of the devil, in Christian terms. The devil is the deceiver. The meaning of the devil is the deceiver. And so the ego has to deceive, because if you're not believing in its deception, you're not believing in it, and therefore its reality is questionable, and its reality eventually you come to understand that its reality is insane. And this is what we're experiencing in the world. Our supposed reality is not only confusing, but it's completely insane. The fact that there's such poverty and such suffering in the world, there's such unfairness in the world, that nothing makes sense. It's becoming so complicated. Even technology is becoming so complicated. There's just too many things to do. There's, you've got to work and then get home and then cook food and then look after the kids, and then you've got to pay your bills and you've got to do this and you've got to do that. And it's just one thing after another. And this is what the working environment believes is valuable. And this is what the ego believes is valuable. And my years of not working has really shown me the insanity of this system, that it is a completely unreasonable system. It's completely confusing. It doesn't make sense. And, we choose it because we think there's value in it, because we think it's bringing us value. And one of the things we think it's giving us is safety and security. But you've only got to look at the state of the world, and people are not feeling safe and secure. There's potential for war. We've just come through a virus. it's just one thing after another. There's job loss, there's money loss, there's people losing their homes, there's people losing their families, because the stress is becoming so extreme that it's difficult to function. So my years of not working have really given me a lot of time to meditate. Really, meditate and dive into the inner journey, which again, like I said, the ego does not want does not want to do. It's because it is actually the death of the ego to look inside yourself and see the reality of who you really are, beyond the illusion and the deception of the egoic identity, which is the separate identity. We come to the understanding or the realization that the separate self is just not real. And all those things that we valued and believed in and we thought were helping us and saving us and bringing us abundance, turns out that they weren't, and they never did, and they never can. This is why there's so many false gurus at the moment who teach, find abundance, make more money, become a millionaire, get a better job, make another career change. These are all, we think we're doing it for the best, but what we're doing is we're chasing the same beliefs, that there's value in places where value doesn't actually exist. I've said before that the money system is a symbol. It doesn't actually have a reality of its own. Therefore, where's the reality of, where's the value in money if it's just a symbol? It actually doesn't have any value. And the same with everything, because everything is ultimately breaking down the minute it's built. Everything is being destroyed the minute it has appeared. And even the body, from the moment of our birth, it's beginning its process towards death. This is why the body self needs to be questioned, and the body identity really needs to be questioned, because it's just not who we are. And when we believe we are that, we are lost in a place of fear, and we're lost within the egoic mind. We're lost within the beliefs of the ego. And this is why this busyness of being busy and working for a living and all this keeps us trapped within the deception of evil, really. Because in reality, we are spiritual beings, and in reality, we were given everything within our creation, within creation. We were given everything, and everything is ours to have access to. But we don't have that when we see ourselves as bodies. And so we're always in defense of the outside, we're always attacking the outside, because attack and defense are the same things. They are identical. You only attack what you defend from, and you only defend what you would attack or what you think is attacking. And so we're in this perpetual motion of attack and defense, defending ourselves, attacking those we think we need to protect ourselves from. Even if it's just thoughts, it doesn't have to be physical, it's just thoughts, because at the end of the day, it's all thoughts anyway. The physical action is coming from a thought. So, 20 years of not working has shown me a completely different reality of the self, of who I am and who everyone else is. And because of that, I've realized that everything comes to us if we ask. Basically, I say honestly, if we ask honestly, because we're not asking from a false sense of hope, we're not asking from something outside of us. We actually recognize who we are within ourselves, and therefore when we ask, we're asking honestly, because we're actually asking with the knowledge of the self. So it's not a false sense of hope, which is always, It's always egoic. The hope of the ego is always unreliable because it has no reality in itself, because the ego is a false reality and everything it projects is a false reality. But the self is real, and if you come to understand the self, you come to understand the reality, and therefore you can put your trust and your faith in it and your hope in it, because you are trusting then in something that is trustworthy, and you're putting value, you're trusting in what is valuable, and you're seeing value where it truly is. And it's this that is ultimately going to save us, because it doesn't matter what we do in the world and the outside, if our fundamental beliefs about ourselves haven't changed, we're just going round and round in circles, making more and more confusion for ourselves, more and more problems, more and more things to sort out, more and more policy changes, more and more politicians, governments. There's a never. The mind is infinitely vast. There's no end to its ability to imagine and create. So we really we find peace. We find peace when we experience the knowledge of our reality. That peace comes into the mind, and so there's no need to change the world. There's no need to fight for anything. There's no need to defend anything, because you start to recognize that all those things are part of the egoic illusion, the egoic deception that we have to save the world, that we have to change the world. All we have to do is look inside and change the beliefs about ourselves, and then the outside changes. It doesn't doesn't work the other way around. You can't change the outside and hope to fix the problems of the world. You have to change the inside. You have to change your perception of yourself and see yourself differently, and then the outside changes and all the problems change, because all the problems are only egoic problems. They're not real problems. They just seem real and they seem big, because they're never ending, because there's one problem after another. Have you ever noticed that one problem ends and another one begins? You sort one problem out and another one comes. You sort one tax out and another tax comes. You sort one bill out and another bill comes. You sort one law out and another law comes, and it's just one thing after another, because they're all coming from the same belief that we are not who we truly are. And this is the part of the busyness of this world, having to work for a living, having to work to survive, compete with each other, always competing, always trying to get more, trying to save the self, trying to save the body. All of this is part of the deception of the egoic mind, part of the deception of evil, really. And so, because the world is changing at such a fast pace at the moment, we are literally being squeezed into positions where we have to face this inner knowledge now. Because the jobs aren't going to be there, the work's not going to be there, the money is not going to be there. And so, we're going to be forced to confront these issues within ourselves. We're going to be forced to face the truth. And if we do it sooner rather than later, it will just make our journey that much easier, and it will speed up the process for everybody. And then when everyone is on the same page, everyone has come to the same realization, the wars will stop, the fighting will stop, the greed will stop, there will be enough. Everyone will start to live in peace and harmony and abundance, because there will be a sharing of equality and fairness, of justice. There will be a justice in the world. Justice means fairness, so there will be a fairness in the world. We don't have that at the moment. We have an insane system of governance. We have an insane system of justice. We have an insane belief in ourselves, and the only way to correct that is really to contemplate life, to contemplate Take the time to contemplate, who am I, who am I, who am I, what is the reality of who I am? Am I really this body? Is this body really who I am? Is this flesh and this blood and these bones and this water that's, 80% of my body is water, the rest is fats and acids and some minerals and other things. Am I really that? And the fact that there's billions of organisms, most of our body is made up of a billion of organisms that aren't even human. So am I really that? And, to question that, and then slowly come to the realization that actually, no, I'm not that. And then the light comes on. The light in the mind comes on. The light switches on, and then once that light switches on, there's no turning back. Because now the light has come. There's no turning back then. The light has shone in the darkness, and the darkness has disappeared. And therefore, the heart opens, love opens, compassion for other people opens, compassion for everybody. The gratitude comes, the peace comes, the abundance comes. It all comes. But it all comes together because it's all part of a oneness. It's part of a one consciousness, which is, we are conscious beings. We are spiritual conscious beings. We're not physical beings. And the busyness of this world keeps us trapped within the physical. It keeps us on a survival mode. Survive, save the body, save, or save my family's body. It's always about saving the body, whether it's your own body or someone else's body. And you can't save the body, because the body is a manifestation of the mind. So when the mind is sick, the body is sick. It doesn't work the other way around. You cannot heal the body and hope to heal the mind. You heal the mind, and the body heals itself. The body is a perfect organism that takes complete direction from the mind. It does nothing without the mind. It does nothing without the spirit. Once the mind is retracted from the body, it's inert. It's paralyzed. It doesn't do anything. Once the spirit has left the body, it is a stinking mass of rotting flesh. So without the spirit and without the mind, the body is nothing. It has no power, it has no control over anything, it has no intelligence. Its intelligence is purely of the mind and of the spirit. And the mind of the spirit, the mind of the universal mind, the one mind, is infinitely more intelligent than the egoic mind. There is no comparison. The egoic mind is a tiny, isolated part of the mind that is fearful and lacks knowledge. It is making its own reality up as it goes along, because it's separated from knowledge, it's separated from the divine self, it's separated from wisdom. So this is why it's so confusing, to live in an egoic world. It's so confusing, whereas reality is so reasonable, it's so understandable. It makes sense. You don't have to question any of it because all of it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to the ego. It does not make sense to the egoic mind. It does not make sense to the egoic intellect. But once you've experienced the knowledge of the self and the wisdom of creation, it all makes sense. It all makes sense together as a whole. This is why the ego is always trying to separate things apart, and compartmentalize everything, because nothing to the ego makes sense together. So this is why our laws don't make sense together, and our structures don't make sense together. And we try and make sense of the world, but we're doing it from a confused state of mind, which cannot make sense of the world, because the egoic mind is separate from knowledge. Has separated from knowledge and from wisdom. This is why we don't remember who we are. because we actually lack knowledge. We don't remember. Once we were born into the body, we lost knowledge because we became forgetful. Like when you dream, you fall asleep at night, you forget the person who's lying in bed asleep. You forget who you really are, and you go into a completely different reality. And the world that your self is in is completely gone to you. You've lost complete knowledge of it. And this is really the state of the human body, the human being, is that we are more in a dream than we are in a reality. And even quantum physics acknowledges this, that the world, the physical world, is not actually physical, it's energetic. And it's completely under the direction of consciousness. And without consciousness, there is nothing. So, yeah, if you're working and you're enjoying your work and you're loving what you're doing, absolutely amazing. Continue and do what you love to do. But if you're working to survive and you're struggling and it's not working and you're not making enough money and all these things are just start to contemplate. Just start to contemplate who you are. It's not going to happen immediately. For most people, it's not going to happen immediately. It's going to take a bit of time, and it's going to take a bit of unraveling and a bit of confusion and a bit of suffering. It's going to do. You're probably going to go down that road because that is, you're letting go of a whole belief system about yourself, which does entail some fear and some confusion. But if you're working and you're busy and you're not enjoying it and it's not fulfilling, it's not what you want, and it's not bringing you what you want. If you're just paying bills and that's all you're doing, and you're not living and you're not enjoying life and you're just on a survival mode, start to question your reality. Really start to question who you are. Spend a bit of time. Take some time every day. 15 minutes, half an hour, go and sit under a tree, go and sit on the beach. Practice some meditation, practice some contemplation. If it means reading some books and on spiritual understandings and knowledge, that's a beginning. That's a beginning, and really start to question reality. And eventually, your reality will shift, things will shift. And you'll start to recognize you'll start to recognize the shifts, and you'll have more faith in what you're doing. You'll trust more in what you're doing. You'll trust less in the working environment, less in the money. You'll trust less in all the systems that man has made, in ignorance basically, and forgetfulness. And you'll start to trust in the divine, the divinity of life. You start to trust in the holiness that is the self and that is everyone. And you start to notice that everyone is amazing actually. Everyone becomes your friend, everyone supports you, everyone helps you, everyone is doing the best for you. If that's not your case, if that's not what you're experiencing, then it's because you're lost in your egoic mind and you're lost in your body identity. And because of that, you're seeing other people as bodies and you're not seeing people as they truly are. So, this is my recommendation, especially at this time of this transition period that we are all going through. And it is an amazing journey. It's an amazing journey, and it does not have to be this working for a living, work to survive, pay bills, always struggling. It doesn't have to be that at all. There is plenty. There is enough for everybody. There's more than enough. The universe is an infinite universe of goodness and love. And if you're not seeing that, it's because you lost yourself in a false identity about yourself. And that just needs to be undone. We just need to undo that false identity, that deception. So this is the path that we're on. We're only here for a number of years, a short number of years, maybe 100. For many it'll be less than that. Do we really want to just spend our lives working for a living and working to survive and paying bills and paying taxes and supporting insane ideas and insane governments and insane wars? Is that really why we've come to this beautiful planet, this incredible planet that we share with, billions and billions of beautiful creatures? And we really come here just to, buy handbags and buy shoes and buy cars and buy houses and store money in vaults and collect gold and collect diamonds and collect bling, Do we really come here for that? Is that really the highest goal that we have for ourselves?